We are recording what we saying, people. HJM Boxing, your host Harley. And on today's video, I'm going to be breaking down the fights happening on the weekend. The pay-per-view fight, first and foremost, was Sky Sports, where you've got Chisora Parker versus Derek Chisora. And on the BT card, I'll be breaking down that briefly. We've got Mafalani, the IBF flyweight champion, versus Sonny Edwards on BT regular on the Friday night. First and foremost, I'll go straight in with the Parker Chisora fight on pay-per-view on Sky. First and foremost, the whole pay-per-view, I'll go through the whole undercard, but this pay-per-view as a whole hasn't really generated the interest or really perspective. It hasn't been promoted that well, I don't believe. I haven't really seen a lot of adverts for it on Sky Sports regular, which is a bit surprising, to be honest. I know obviously the rumours are Eddie Hearn's leaving Sky, and he's joining the zone, and obviously, well, rumours and a lot of people confirmed it, so that looks like it's happening. So it seems like Matchroom, I don't know if Matchroom or Sky, they're not really seems to be promoting. It's in a bit of a weird stage where they're divorcing, they're breaking company. At the end of the contract, Eddie Hearn will be leaving to go to the zone, and the shows they've got at the moment, they've got a couple more shows left to show. I think this is one of them, and I just don't think the interest has really been there. I don't sit on social media. Obviously, you'll have your Twitter, your Instagram, etc. I haven't really seen any advertisement. You know, Sky Sports, the juggernaut Sky Sports is. You'd normally see them promoting this quite heavy, especially a pay-per-view event with two heavyweights like Parker and Chisora, who have been on British television a lot, been on pay-per-view platform. Obviously, Chisora, Dylan White fights. Obviously, he's fought Fury, he's fought Klitschko, Vitaly Klitschko. He's fought a lot of big names, so you expect them to be promoted that. Obviously, Joseph Parker, he's been in with Dylan White. He's been in with AJ on pay-per-view, so both are quite recognisable pay-per-view fighters. Obviously, most of their fights have been as the B-side, not as a standalone pay-per-view. They haven't been the main attraction, have they? But no, it's a bit odd in that sense. They haven't really promoted it. Obviously, on the undercard as well, you've got some good fighters. You've got Katie Taylor, Natasha Jonas. You've got Craig Richards trying to become a world champion against Dimitri Bivol. You've got Chris Eubank Jr. returning against Marcus Morrison. Haven't really seen the hype around any of these names really on Sky Sports, which is odd. But no, we'll go straight in with the pay-per-view. Obviously, you've got Campbell Hatton making his second fight, so we look forward to seeing that. You've got James Tennyson as well on the undercard, early stages. I think he's fighting for the IBO title, which is a world title version of a title, but obviously he's not one of the main four belts and not considered by many as a world championship, but he's fighting for an IBO super lightweight title even. He's Johnny Nelson's favourite fighter. Nelson believes he'd knock out Gervonta Davis, so we look forward to seeing him probably knock out the guy he's fighting. So that'll be another stiff, I suspect. Campbell Hatton, he's got to learn. He's learning on the job, so he's coming back. I think Scott Fitzgerald is coming back as well. I think he's obviously coming back from the Anthony Fowler fight. I don't think he's fought Ted Cheeseman, didn't he? I don't think he's fought since the Ted Cheeseman fight, so he'll be back, I think, in a routine fight, and I look forward to seeing what they do with Scott Fitzgerald, because he's a fighter I quite like to watch. He's very brash, and he's a good fighter, so I look forward to seeing where he goes after this. I think it'll be just a tune-up fight on this undercard. I think it might even be the Facebook fight. I'm not even too sure, So you've got that fight coming up. You've got Campbell Hatton. You've got James Tennyson, and you've got these kind of fights. And then there's four actual decent fights as a whole. If you look at the four fights that are on the card, what they promoted at the start, they're four reasonably good fights. You've got names on there. You've got people coming back. You've got a great women's fight for all the belts at women's. I think it's a lightweight title. Obviously, Katie Taylor and Natasha Jonas. I'll go into that more briefly in my opinion on the prediction. And the heavyweight fight is a good fight, but I think I said it a couple months ago on a video. I don't think this is a pay-per-view worthy card, and I still stand by that, to be honest with you. They're good. Probably they're paying a lot of these guys a lot of money that it probably generates pay-per-view, but I generally think this could be one of Sky's lowest pay-per-view selling shows, to be honest with you. I think this could do really poor numbers. I just haven't seen the promotion behind it, but we'll go into that a little bit deeper. But we'll start off. We've started off briefly with a few of the undercard fights, but we'll start off. I think this is the fourth fight, or one of the four fights. I think it's Chris Eubank, Marcus Morrison, Chris Eubank Jr. returning. I think I said it a couple of months ago on another video. I think Chris Eubank Jr. is a good fighter. I like him. He's done well. He's beaten some good names in the middleweight and super middleweight division. James DeGale's a good name on resume. Arthur Abraham's a good name. Chudanov's a decent name. He's beat Blackwell, was a good win the British title. So he's beaten some good people on his resume, obviously. But when he's got to that like top level, you know, the world level, he's been found out for me in terms of boxing ability. Billy Joe Saunders obviously boxed. He gave Billy Joe Saunders a good fight, to be fair. It was a close fight. It was obviously Billy, I thought, won the fight quite. I think he won 8-4, 116, 112. I thought he won the fight well from memory, but Eubank gave him some trouble at the end of the fight. He's got a great gas tank, Eubank. So he'll always be in there with a top level guy, a bit like Demetrius Andrade, Liam Williams. He always have that. He always show that fitness and heart, you know. And obviously he'll always be in shape, and his conditioning is brilliant, Chris Eubank Jr. So for what he lacks in boxing ability, he'll always make up in heart, conditioning, and will to win. So he'll always be live against a top guy. But is he realistically going to ever beat a top guy? Is he ever going to become a real world champion? Obviously, he had the IBO belts, which he carried around with him, 2-time IBO world champion. But is he ever going to win a WBA, IBF title, WBC, WBO? I'm not too sure, you know. I think he's probably got to have the right matchmaking at 160. I think, would he beat a Demetrius Andrade? Potentially, maybe. I think I do rate him ahead of Liam Williams. I think he's a better fighter than Liam Williams, so could maybe beat a Demetrius Andrade. Could he beat a GGG at this stage? Maybe, but you'd make GGG a favourite. You make Charlo a big favourite against him. So he's in that mix, really, Eubank, where he needs to really, I think he's 29, 30 years old, Chris Eubank Jr., so he really needs to push on in his career and look for these big fights, you know, even domestic fights. He's got some big domestic fights. He could fight Liam Williams. That'd be a good fight. You could try and get, obviously, what happens with Billy Joe Saunders against Canelo, if Billy wins or loses, I think even if Billy loses, that'd be a good fight for Eubank to try and correct one of his defeats. But he needs to get a move on, because he's been inactive. I don't think he's fought since was it the Korobov fight? Where was it? I think that was his last fight, wasn't it? The Matty Korobov fight, where it was a weird ending. Obviously, I think he lost the first round against Korobov, and looking like this would be a tough fight for Eubank. And then Korobov's legs went, or his ankle, something went, his knee popped, something like that. And the fight ended prematurely, and he got the W. So, no, Eubank needs to make a move on. He needs to try, after this fight, look to go for a final eliminator somewhere, or look for a certain route to go for a world title fight. And look for a name, maybe Murata, the Japanese champion. He's potentially a winnable fight for him. So, yeah, these kind of options are there. Marcus Morrison, it's got a good opportunity for him. Joe Gallagher's delivering him a good opportunity there. I think he's had some wins in Italy, hasn't he? After he had a few defeats, I think he lost to Wellborn, didn't he, quite badly? I remember that from memory. That was a horrible defeat he took against Wellborn, but he's rebuilt. He's gone to Italy, won in Italy, and good luck to the guy. It's a great opportunity for him, but in my opinion, there's levels. I think I said in my video previously, there's levels to this, and I think Eubank's a level above that kind of British English level. He's a European fringe world level, maybe. That's where he is, Chris Eubank Jr., and I expect Chris Eubank Jr. to win by KO early, 3 or 4 rounds, to be honest with you. That's my kind of prediction with that one. And then obviously you've got on this card of Eubank, you've got Katie Taylor and Natasha Jonas. My thoughts on this is it's a cracking fight for women's boxing. I think these are probably one of the best women's fights that's actually been made for a long time. Obviously, Kate Taylor, Pursoon rematch was a rematch, and the first fight were brilliant fights for women's boxing. They were co-headlines on a lot of good pay-per-view cards, so they were good fights and they delivered for value. And I think Natasha Jonas has really risen back into the boxing. Really, she had that defeat against Vivian Ivanov. She had that defeat, didn't she? And since that defeat, she's actually come back and she's looked brilliant, you know. She fought Terry Harper at Fight Camp last year, summertime last year, and put a really good account at, you know. And in my opinion, a lot of people's opinion, won that fight clearly. She won that fight 6-4, 7-3, whatever. She was a clear winner in that fight for me. I thought the rounds were very easy to score, and I thought they robbed her with the draw, to be fair. I'd have liked to have seen that rematch. I think Natasha Jonas has Terry Harper's number, and they never pursued that. I don't think Eddie Hearn, Steffi Bull really fancied that job, which is fair enough. But yeah, Natasha Jonas now delivered, because of that performance, has delivered herself and got herself on the massive stage here. Well done to Joe Gallagher again. He's managing his fighters and obviously training these fighters into positions and doing good things. He's got a great stable, Joe Gallagher, and he's got Natasha Jonas a hell of an opportunity here against Katie Taylor. And in my opinion, Natasha Jonas is well in this fight. She has it's more than a live dog opportunity. I think this is nearly a 50-50 fight for me. What I've seen of two of them in their last kind of performance, I think Natasha Jonas is a live dog for me, and I'll give her a really strong possibility. I think it's a 50-50 fight. Could go either way. I think Katie Taylor, for me, in my opinion, is on the decline. I think she's a great fighter, great ambassador for women's boxing, Irish boxing as well. She's done brilliant things, Olympics and etc. Obviously, Natasha Jonas again in the Olympics. It's a great fight for women's boxing. Great, two great women who have really doing good things in the sport, not trash talkers, just talk, humble people, doing great things in the sport, real ambassador to the sport, great talkers, good on them. Obviously, Natasha Jonas, brilliant as a commentator, pundit. She's done really well with Sky, and I think on DAZN, I've seen her feed. She does really well with that. She's done really well, Natasha Jonas, got herself in the position, and she deserves this world title fight. And I think Natasha Jonas is on the up, while Katie Taylor's probably coming down from what I've seen from Katie Taylor, you know. I think Katie Taylor, for me, no disrespect to her, I thought she lost the first fight against Bassoon. Second fight, she probably lost as well, to be fair. I think that was I've watched it once or twice, and a lot of people thought Katie Taylor won that fight. And if you rewatch it, I know Eddie Hearn says you can see Katie Taylor won enough of the rounds and the quality of boxing was better. But I thought Bassoon in that fight, the work rate, commanded the centre of the ring, ring generalship was on it, to be honest, kept throwing. Maybe she was missing a lot, but she kept throwing and landed, and she outlanded Katie Taylor. And probably, in my opinion, that's how I score boxing. And I thought she won that fight. Again, it's probably close fight, 6-4, 7-3, something like that. I thought she was a deserved winner. But in this fight, you know, I think I said in my preview fight, I think I had Katie Taylor on points because I just think the judging is so biased to Katie Taylor. You're going to have to, you really got to either knock her out or get knockdowns against her. I really think it's so biased in her favour, to be fair. I think obviously the Bassoon fight in New York and the fight camp fight, there were a lot closer fights, and the judging was poor in those fights. So she's the cash cow, Katie Taylor, as well. So it's tough. It's going to be tough for Natasha Jonas to win on points. I'd love to see her win on points. I'm supporting Natasha Jonas in this fight, and I hope she wins the fight. But head to heart, I probably think it'll be a close fight. And I think if it's a close fight, Katie Taylor will get points. So if I was betting, I'd say Katie Taylor on points, to be honest with you. But I hope Natasha Jonas wins. But we know what British boxing and the judging is like at the moment. You just have to look at the fights last weekend and that David Adelaide against Kamil Solowski. You just have to look at the judging in that to tell you that you've got a mountain to climb as the A-side fighter and the away fighter, which Natasha Jonas probably is in this fight. She is, because Katie Taylor is the golden girl, and you see Sky pushing her. But to be fair, Sky, they need to be pushing Natasha Jonas more. I know she's getting more gigs on Sky and that, which is good, but she's on her own, and she's doing her own thing and doing really well. So good luck to both women. I like both women, and yeah, may the best women win. But I think Katie Taylor probably on points because of the politics, and it's kind of wrong. I'm kind of predicting it on that, but we know what British boxing is like at the moment. So yeah, Katie Taylor on points. The other fight we've got, and this is a great opportunity, this is for Craig Richards, you know, for the WBA light heavyweight strap. We got Craig Richards versus the champion Dimitri Bivol, who's a great fighter. Dimitri Bivol, isn't he? 175. Dimitri Bivol has beaten a lot of top names and really looked good doing it. You know, Joe Smith Jr. is now the WBO champion. Just have to look at how Bivol dealt with him. That was a brilliant win for him. Pascal, good win for Dimitri Bivol. He's beaten a lot of good names in the light heavyweight division. He's probably, in my opinion, I think Beterbiev is the number one, but I still say he's got the best win, Beterbiev, in Gvozdyk, and Callum Johnson's a good win as well for Beterbiev. But I do honestly believe Dimitri Bivol, as a collection of names, he has probably the best resume in boxing for me. He beat Pascal as well, which is a great win. You look at Jean Pascal, what he's done since. He beat Marcus Brown, which is a good win in the light heavyweight title picture. He beat Badu Jack, so beating him's no easy feat, Jean Pascal. So Dimitri Bivol's got a good collection of names on his resume, and he's fought at the higher level. We've got to be respectful. He's fought at the higher level. But Craig Richards is a guy I really like to watch, you know. He's been an underdog a few times. I remember he obviously came in to fight Frank Biglione on short notice, and he really that performance really put in defeat. That performance really showed what a good fighter Craig Richards was. He went 12 for Frank Biglione, who was a very good British champion, and really put in a really good performance there. Came back, destroyed Jake Bull. He's beaten a few, obviously Chad Sugden, it was a draw. I thought he beat him. And then he fought, yeah, that was a poor decision, that draw. I thought Craig won that fight. And the real big fight he's coming into it with the form of his career is probably the Shaq and Pitters win. on Channel 5. He was a big he was a big underdog in that fight. A lot of people had Craig Richards as an underdog. I was quite high on Shaq and Pitters as well. Thought it was a closer fight than the bookies had it. I won some money on Craig Richards, but I rated Shaq and Pitters, and I thought it'd be a tough night for Craig Richards. Obviously, Shaq and Pitters, very long, lengthy guy, 6'4", 6'5". He's a tall guy, Shaq and Pitters. I think maybe not that tall, but he's a very tall guy for light heavyweight. He got a good jab, Shaq and Pitters, and Craig Richards just took that away from him, out jabbed him, and just really battered him. And that was a hell of a performance, a hell of a knockout as well, hell of an ending. And it shows Craig Richards has got the power, like a bit like Callum Johnson has the power to really end anyone, And he's built well. He's really built for light heavyweight as well. Craig Richards, technically decent as well, good technical fighter. And I wouldn't be surprised, if Craig Richards makes this a really tough fight for Dimitri Bivol, Am I going to say he wins the fight? It's hard to pick against Dimitri Bivol because where Dimitri Bivol's mixed it, at world championship level, Dimitri Bivol has done everything. He's asked of, and he's beaten some guys who've been world champion, been there and done it. Craig Richards hasn't mixed at that world, Europe, like that top level, that world level, that world title level in particular. But he's a worthy challenger. You've seen a lot worse fighters fight for a world title. And to be fair for Craig, he might be, and his team will be hoping, Peter Sims and that will be hoping, Bivol is not fresh, he's not at it, and he hasn't fought for a long time. I think Dimitri Bivol, nearly 2 years, I think it was something crazy like that. He hasn't fought for that long, so they maybe hope to catch him cold here, and maybe Dimitri Bivol's eyes off the ball and thinking about a Beterbiev unification or something like this, and his eye might be off the ball, and Craig Richards will be game as hell for this fight, and I think he's got a chance in this fight. He's a live dog. I say he's a live dog, but for me, I think Dimitri Bivol, his class will show, and I'd say how the fight goes. I'd say Dimitri Bivol on points. I think Craig's a tough man from all accounts. I've never seen him hurt in a fight or anything. So I think Dimitri Bivol might just out technically do him. But I wouldn't be surprised if Craig Richards has his moments, a bit like Liam Williams had against Andrade, have his moments in the fight, maybe rock Dimitri Bivol. I wouldn't be shocked at that. And probably may give Dimitri Bivol his toughest fight to date, which would be impressive if he could do that. Because if you just look at the Joe Smith Juniors of this world, who's obviously a world champion now, Joe Smith Jr. and Pascal and etc. These top guys he's fought never really gave Dimitri Bivol trouble. So I look forward to this fight, and I think Dimitri Bivol on points, but I'd love to see Craig Richards do it, and I wish him well in this fight. So and now going straight in with the pay-per-view fight. Interesting fight, or interesting in the sense, not a fight. It is interesting because it's heavy. I like watching heavyweight boxing, but as a headline pay-per-view, not for me. But two guys that are they're nearly men for me. Obviously, Joseph Parker has won a world title, but I think that was more well done to more Tyson Fury having to vacate his belts and his team doing a good job to get him in a position against an unmotivated Andy Ruiz, potentially in a close fight, which could have gone either way. That was his world title win. So fair play. I think he's living off that Joseph Parker now, to be honest with you. I mentioned it in my other video. I think I was impressed with Joseph Parker on the up, looked good against Carlos Takam. I was very impressed with that win at a similar time. Like I mentioned, AJ hadn't fought a Carlos Takam type opponent. So I was very impressed with that win from Joseph Parker on the up. I was impressed with the Andy Ruiz win as well. That looks a great win, obviously, on his resume now. And that's probably his best win on his resume. Close fight. I think I had Parker edging it, to be honest with you, but a lot of people had Ruiz winning it, and it was hometown, wasn't it? So and Andy Ruiz was unlucky not to win or at least get a draw there, but it was what it was. Joseph Parker got the win there. Then after that, Joseph Parker, I think he fought Kajani, didn't he? And went points with Kajani. And you've looked at likes of Daniel Dubois, what he's done with Razvan Kajani. Luis Ortiz destroyed Kajani as well. So it just shows that Joseph Parker, for me, lacks something. He lacks a bit of aggression for me. I remember the Dillian Whyte fight. Fair enough, it was a decent fight for Joe in a losing effort for Parker. At the end, he had his moment where he could have knocked Dillian Whyte out, but it just seems too nice, Joseph Parker. He doesn't have that kind of like spite in him, and never looks like looking to kill, like go for the kill, never looks like that kind of guy that's going to absolutely, if you drop someone, hurt someone. No, like Dillian Whyte has that spite in his work, or an Anthony Joshua, has that spite in his work. And Chisora has that heart warrior spite in his work. Chisora wants to hurt you in that ring and bring that aggression. So I think this could be a very tough night for Joseph Parker indeed. I think this could be a really tough fight. Does Chisora have the power to knock Parker out? Maybe not, because I think Joseph Parker is proven he's got a good chin. You look at obviously he went the distance with Anthony Joshua. He was the first guy to go the distance with AJ. Did that. Obviously, Dylan White had him hurt, well, had him dropped once or twice. Obviously, one of the knockdowns was a little bit controversial, but had him down, but never looked hurt in the fight and came strong, like I say. Parker's one of them guys, though, for me, that has good conditioning. He has decent basics, good fundamentals, and that. He's just a 6 out of 10, 7 out of 10 guy out of everything. He doesn't have that one attribute that makes you think, wow, this guy is box office. This guy is brilliant to watch. Very boring fighter to watch, you know. Very stinks boring. He's been boring, you know, since the AJ fight, which was a boring fight, the AJ fight. But all his fights for me have been, I think the Dylan White was a good fight, to be fair. That was an exciting fight. I thought Dylan White brought a lot more out of him, to be fair, than anything. But after that fight, he's been very boring, you know. I thought the Junior Farr fight, obviously his last fight, poor fight to watch, very boring. Junior Farr holding, but Parker didn't really engage himself, you know. Looked really poor, and that was the end of him and Kevin Barry, which probably he should have left Karen Barry ages ago, you know, fights ago. He should have left probably after the AJ fight. That was the time to really make that exit or whatever to part companies. That was the time to really end it with him. But he stuck with Kevin Barry, probably more for loyalty than anything. And yeah, he's just been boring since that, you know, and he's now in another pay-per-view, which I don't agree with. He's not, he doesn't deserve it, but he is what it is. He's now with Andy Lee. Hope Andy Lee maybe could unlock some new things in him, to be fair. He looks in decent shape from what I've seen. So good luck. He's a good guy, Joseph Parker. I have nothing against him. I just find his style and everything about him boring. I think he's a very beatable guy. And he's considered this kind of world level top 10 guy. Not in my top 10 heavyweights, to be fair, Joseph Parker at the moment. I think there's a lot of guys on the up, you know, your Tony Yokers, obviously Joe Joyce, I'm probably ahead of him now anyway, but Joe Joyce, still think Daniel Dubois could maybe beat him, but obviously I'm not going to make that. Daniel Dubois is ahead of him, Hergovich, there's a lot of names, you know. I think that could beat Joseph Parker in the heavyweight division, but he's there and he's on another pay-per-view, so fair play to him. And Derek Chisora, he's the guy that won't go away, you know. Everyone thought he was done after the Tyson Fury defeat, keeps coming back. Always exciting, Chisora. He's one of my favourite fighters. I love the guy a lot, to be fair. He's always good value. And to be fair, if you want a guy on pay-per-view to deliver, he will deliver you entertainment, because he's box office, to be fair. He's knockout. You obviously see his knockout against Carlos Takam. You see his fight wars against Dillian White. I gave Dillian White everything, gave him loads of trouble. So Chisora is always in a fight. Gave Usyk a decent night where I thought he lost the fight comfortably, but he gave Usyk maybe some tough moments in there, but yeah, he came second best. He seems that's his career. Chisora, really, sadly, he fights at a high level. He's fought at a high level his whole career, but it's been second best in the majority of his big fights. Price that big win against Takam, which was a good win for him. David Price is beat, so he has a solid resume at heavyweight, and he's around that top 10. Probably another one, again, not my top 10. He's a bit of a gatekeeper now. I think both these lads are gatekeepers, really. So that's why I find it shocking. It's on pay-per-view. You've got two gatekeepers headlining a pay-per-view fight. No title again. Maybe stick Katie, like I think I said in my other video, stick Katie Taylor-Jonas as the pay-per-view fight and have this as the co-main event. People will probably be less argumentative about that, but I think a lot of people have a problem with this being the main event, and I don't blame them, to be honest with you, because I think both guys, well, obviously Chisora coming off a loss against Alexander Usyk, and Joseph Parker in a boring fight against Junior Farr. In my opinion, actually lost to Junior Farr as well, but it was a boring fight, and he hometown again, and obviously they have money in this fight, so Joseph Parker was going to get the W there. But you know, it's two guys that are coming really not in great form and coming towards the end of it. I think Joseph Parker, he's still young enough, I suppose. I think he's in his late 20s, but he's just a guy that I think when he won the world title got no motivation. There's not is there for Parker to really do. I think that's the peak of his career, winning that world title from a vacant belt, and he's never going to be fighting anyone or winning a world title again, in my opinion. He won't win another world title, but let's see if Andy Lee's done something new with him. I look forward to that. Buddy McGirt as well, Chisora's new coach. Yeah, so we'll see how I see the fight going. Actually, I think Chisora, from what I've seen from the two, I think Chisora's in the better form, and I think he could rough and tough Parker and maybe make this a tough night for Parker. Actually, I think a lot of people probably would say Parker will win because he's younger, he's fresher, and he probably has just about enough to keep Chisora off him, maybe. That's what people might lean to and may say he wins on points. But I think Chisora can bully him, to be honest with you. I've seen nothing in Parker's last 4 or 5 fights to suggest he's anything. He's showing me that he's world level anymore. I think he's on the decline. And I think how I see Chisora winning on points. That's my opinion. I think Chisora will win on points. Maybe a close fight, 115, 113, 116, 112, close decision. And it could be a great fight. I think the styles could gel in this one, but not a pay-per-view fight. But Sky throwing the last roll of the dice, and it just shows the standards where they are. So yeah, it's a pay-per-view card. We've got some good fights on the cards. We've got some good fighters coming back, but not a pay-per-view card for me. And yeah, we will see with this one. And of course, yeah, pay-per-view, and it just, like I said earlier in the video, Sky Sports really just shows they're really ending their boxing association with Eddie Hearn with a real whimper. And these kind of pay-per-views just sum up the legacy really of the last 2 years of what the pay-per-view model has been in the UK with Eddie Hearn and Sky. And I really hope it improves in the next couple of months. If Sky stay in boxing, which I don't know if they even will stay in boxing, but hopefully they stay in boxing, they really up their game and look to do something new with it, because it's the product's stale now. It's lost its sparkle. You know, it was good when the Carl Froch days, George Groves, the early AJ days. Yeah, obviously had these Golovkins come into the UK and stuff. That was when Sky were really in their element with this pay-per-view model, but they've lost it for me. And yeah, this show sums it up really. This pay-per-view just sums up what the last 18 months have been with Sky, utter garbage, but it is what it is. And obviously we'll go now to the card, which is on the Friday night. We'll go straight in. There's a couple of fights which I'm interested in this card. We'll go straight in with one of the co-main events. You got Kieran Smith, the Scottish super welterweight, v Troy Williamson. This, I think it's for a British title eliminator. This, I think it's a good fight. I think Kieran Smith's a good guy. I've seen him a couple of times on MTK shows, and I think he was on Cyclone shows as well. You know, he's a tall, rangy Scottish fighter, and he could give Troy Williamson some trouble here. I think this is a 50-50 on paper. I think Troy Williamson, in his last fight, I think was it Scarf, was it? Yeah, Clinton Mitchell's fighter. I think he lost that fight, didn't he, against Scarf? I think Scarf got robbed, so he's a beatable. I think Troy Williamson obviously has a great amateur experience, or good fought in the World Boxing Series. He has a good amateur experience, Team GB, but this could be a very interesting, tasty fight, you know. I think it's very live dog. I think it's a 50-50 fight, and I wouldn't be surprised if Kieran Smith wins. You can probably just edge Troy Williamson, but could go either way, and we wait and see with this one. And on the undercard, I think the co-main event, you've got a massive name coming back in British and Irish boxing. Michael Conlon returning in the UK as a co-main event versus Ilan Baluta. I don't hope I haven't butchered his name there, but this Baluta, he's been on MTK shows and he's caused a couple of upsets. You know, he beat David Oliver Joyce by decision, and I think he knocked out TJ Dahoney, or he won on points against DJ Dahoney, who was a world champion at a time, obviously. He lost to Danny Roman, but he was a world champion. So he's a guy that's beaten a former world champion and obviously David Oliver Joyce. So he's coming in with good form. This is a good fight for Conlon, another name up in the record, you know, for Conlon. I think he's probably borderline European kind of level, this Baluta. He's 14-2, something like that. So he's a decent fighter. I expect Michael Conlon probably to have too much, win the fight on points. I'd say Michael Conlon probably lacks a bit of power for me at a certain level. You know, I remember watching his fight against the guy Josh Warrington, iced in a couple of rounds, Tuchuchich, I can't pronounce his name, but the Frenchman who Josh Warrington fought, absolutely battered him in a couple of rounds on, I think that was his last show with Frank Warren. And Conlon went quite a number of rounds with this French lad, and the French lad had a few moments in the fight, but I think Conlon at a top level might lack the power, to be honest with you, Michael Conlon. But I think he's highly ranked in the WBO. So I think he's on that borderline, 1 or 2 fights from a world title. So we wait and see with Michael Conlon where he goes. I know he's around that kind of weight with your Valdez's and things like that. I think he might be in the weight below. Off the top of my head, obviously the Herrings, and obviously he's around. Obviously was around the Carl Frampton type of weight. So he's probably looking for a defining fight in a couple of fights. And I think if they can find a WBO route, because obviously Frank and obviously he's with Bob Aaron actually, these guys always seem to go to WBO route. So maybe 1 or 2 more fights and he might be challenging for a world title. We'll see. I think he's a great talented fighter, obviously Conlon, but in the pros, for me, he certainly showed for me that he's lacked power. I think he's at the weight with Emmanuel Navarrete, isn't he? So, and I saw Navarrete the other night against Christopher Diaz. He looked very good, Navarrete. another good win against Diaz, the Puerto Rican. So it's tough. I think he's going to fight someone very good for a world title, but if he can find a vacant belt, which maybe they might try and look for Conlan, he might win a version of a world title, Michael Conlan. I think he's got ability to win a world title, but he might have to be matched for that opportunity. We will see. But yeah, some good fights out there for him. There's Shakur Stevenson, if he's still about. Really big names in these between 127 to 135. You can really fight some really good names. So Mike Conlan's in the mix, the guy I like. So we look forward to seeing him in his next fight as a co-main event next week. And yeah, the main event now. This is a great. This is a good. This is sink or swim, isn't it? This is what we really see if Sonny Edwards is the real deal. BT and Frank Warren have shown a lot of trust or a lot of hope in him, to be fair. And I think they need him to win, really, for their stable recently. It's looking a bit, obviously, since they've done those promo videos, of all these young fighters. They've all been beat, haven't they? Or they've all looked poor, really. Willie Hutchinson obviously got beat. Obviously, David Adelaide looked poor in his last fight. Sadly, a guy I like and rate highly, Denzel Bentley, I think he'll come back, but he lost to Felix Cash. And Felix Cash looked very good. Another matchroom win there, beating Queensberry, which they've done in the last couple of weeks. So, yeah, these kind of fighters. And Frank desperately needs some good news coming out of his stable, because he's got a good stable, Frank Warren. Let's have it right. He has a good stable, some good young fighters, which will come good. Dennis McCann looks a really talented fighter. I like him. I like Hamza Shiraz. I think he looks brilliant. 154, tall, rangy guy, looks superb. They've got Shabazz Massoud as well, who's trained under Ben Davison. So they've got good fighters. Still got good fighters, Frank. But these fighters are probably 3 or 4 years off being like maybe stars in their own rights, or looking to really generate audiences and stuff. They're on their journey, aren't they? They're young guys still learning their craft. So Frank really needs some success from his stable, who are in it at the moment. Stable who are around that kind of British and trying to go upwards in the world title route. So it's a tough fight for Sonny Edwards. Sonny Edwards, I think, for me, has looked good coming up as a fighter. I admire his sweet science. He's a good boxer, very technically very sound. I think Grant Smith, his trainer, let's give him a lot of credit. He's got a good stable there. He's an underrated trainer, Grant Smith. And Sonny Edwards has really gone leaps and bounds with him, to be fair. They've had some good wins coming up. Obviously Marcel Braithwaite, he beat Asomba. That was a good win. Thomas Asomba, who since that has looked good in other fights. Thomas Asomba, always a tough night, Thomas Asomba. And yeah, he's beaten some good names domestically and coming up, and he's fought some good, durable Mexican kids as well. So he's a good fighter, Sonny Edwards. Is this world title fight maybe too soon? You could argue it is, couldn't you? He hasn't had that kind of European sort of title fight or that top 10 sort of name, but the lightweight division's quite limited on who you can fight. So maybe they're just rolling the dice here. I really think they're rolling the dice here against, let's have it right, a good IBF world champion in Maflani, Maruti Maflani, very good champion. He's been undefeated for 10, 11 years, hasn't he? 39 years old. Don't think he's been as active, to be fair, but when you've got the likes of Tete on your resume, and John Real Casimero, who knocked out Sonny's brother, Charlie Edwards, and obviously he's looked very good, Casimero, knocked out Tete as well in his own right. So these are very good wins on your resume. And he's a seasoned guy, more than a seasoned guy. He's a world-class guy who's probably a bit underrated. You don't really hear a lot of people talking about Maruti Maflani, do you? He hasn't really had that recognition, really, from the main, like the proper, like the pound for pound kind of ratings and the outlets that report the pound for pound. You don't really hear him getting talked about, but a champion with that long a resume and wins, and who's been undefeated since 2007, I believe, really hasn't got the hype around, hasn't got that real hype around. I don't know why. Maybe he's in South Africa and he's fighting, I'm not sure, but it's going to be a tough night for Sonny Edwards for me. I know he's 38, 39, but he's mixed at a higher level, Maflani. And is this one where it's too soon for Sonny Edwards? I'm not too sure. I'd love to see. I'd like to see another British world champion, and I'd like to see Sonny do it, to be fair. And as he's technically, if he can box this guy and win early rounds, which I think he could, I think Sonny Edwards can. I think he could win this decision. I think he could win this fight by a decision. It's not going to be easy for Sonny. I think it's going to be tough. I think it's another fight where I think he's going to have moments where he may struggle when they're Sonny, but Sonny's got that ability where he can make fights look easy. He's really good head movement. Footwork's one of the best in boxing for me, in British boxing anyway. I always say Sonny Edwards' footwork up there with a Billy Joe Saunders, up there with Tyson Fury. I think he's in that kind of ilk with footwork, getting in and out of range. He's superb. He's superb for me, Sonny Edwards. His footwork, his movement, his head movement is very good. Lacks the power, of course. That's the only trouble I maybe see for him in this fight. If he lacks power to keep Maflani off him, with Maruti, who's a very hard hitter himself, and Maruti will be the guy who carries the power. And with that power, he will always have the chance in this fight. How I see the fight going, obviously, I think Maruti Maflani is the slight favourite. He's, I think it's very even, the odds, I think it's evens, near enough evens, 5-6 or whatever. I think Maflani's the slight favourite, only slight favourite. I think it's like 55-45 type split. But I'd like to see Sonny Edwards do it, and I think he can do it, Sonny Edwards. I think he can box disciplined. He can do a job on this guy. I think at 38, 39, I think Frank Warren and Edwards are rolling the dice. But I know Sonny Edwards has a lot of, not haters, but a lot of critics, and he's a bit controversial on social media and everything. He's loud. He talks a lot, Sonny Edwards. He does kind of, sometimes in some people's opinions, gets what he deserves in terms of the abuse, but I'm not sure. It's a bit harsh, but I think Sonny's a good guy. His character's a good guy. He sells himself. He talks a good game, which you like to see them characters in boxing. So I admire him in that sense. I do enjoy watching his style. I know his style maybe to some isn't fan friendly, but I do admire his footwork and his, like I say, his head movement. And I think Sonny can do it. I think Sonny on points, there's a real possibility. He's got to start the fight well, got to get them early rounds in. And yeah, he can win this fight at his pace. I think he could make it even look easy, but can't underrate Maflani. I can't underrate him and overlook him and say it's going to be an easy night for Sonny Edwards, because it's not. It's a 50-50 fight on paper, and it can go either way. I think Sonny Edwards on points, and we'll have a new British champion. And that's more, I'm hoping that, and I think it can happen as well. So my prediction on that is Sonny Edwards. And yeah, that's all the predictions on the weekend's fights. Good fights, actually, for British boxing. The pay-per-view, like I said, not a pay-per-view, but there's some good fights on that card still, some good names on the card, some of the better names, some of the good names in British boxing out fighting. You've got a guy fighting for a world title as well on BT. So yeah, get behind it, watch the content, and yeah, see what happens. But yeah, this is HJM Boxing again with another preview to a big stellar week of boxing, big fights on the weekend. And yeah, like always, guys, thank you for the support. Thank you for the guys shouting me out. Showing me love on everything, on social media, on whatever, just people saying you're doing a good job. I like listening to your videos. Thank you very much. It means a lot to me. And yeah, we'll keep going with it and see where it takes us. And yeah, more content coming, guys. So yeah, follow the social media, HJM Boxing on Instagram and YouTube, of course. Do what you do. Follow, subscribe, share, like it, comment below. Even if you think it's a shit video, comment below. I like to hear all opinions on boxing. And if you disagree with me, if you think I'm talking utter shite as well, put it down below and let me know what you think. And maybe you're right. Maybe I am talking shit. So yeah, if you call me out, whatever. All right, people. Anyway, take it easy. HJM Boxing. I'm out.